Howard the Duck from 1986 is considered one of the worst movies ever made. But did you know that it's the first feature film based on a Marvel comic book? Suck it, Iron Man. Team Cap, all the way. What's up? Hello. I put on cologne for you. Did you notice? Probably not. Unless you can smell through the camera. We live in the future! So this week, I decided to talk about one of my favorite types of movies. The schlock film. What's a schlock film? May not be of high budget or high quality or high content, but still has a definite value in watching. It's fun and stupid and you can forget about analyzing it because there's nothing to analyze, but it's still fun and funny. Schlock films are some of my favorite movies in the world. Like, I love these things. They're so freaking stupid and amazing, and I just love them. I don't know why. I can sit and break down The Godfather and Citizen Kane and Gone with the Wind, and that is all good and well, but nothing really beats Killer Clowns from Outer Space. And yes, it's as amazing as it sounds. And that is super amazing. And while I plan to review and recommend a whole slew of schlock film, today I just wanted to throw out some unique facts about some of my favorite movies in the genre. Here's 20 facts about schlock films. Schlocktastic. Schlocktacular. Count Schlockula. Man, now I want some cereal. In 1973, a movie called that is spelled with 7 S's, was released, and it is my grandfather's favorite tagline ever. Don't say it, hiss it. And that's a fact. But in it, there's a scene with cobras, and these were live, actual cobras that were recently caught from the wild in Thailand. They were venomous and ready to strike. To hell with the safety of this crew. We're making a movie called Don't Say It, Hiss It. Let's Scare Jessica to Death from 1971 has some really killer transition scenes, and it turns out that it was pure luck. On the first night of shooting at the house, a really deep, eerie, ominous fog rolled in, and the crew and director thought, this is too good to pass up. So they went outside, shot a whole bunch of footage of the fog, and used most of it for transitions. Piranha, 1978. Universal, who owned Jaws, actually filed a lawsuit against the production company of Piranha, New World, because they thought that it was a complete ripoff of Jaws. But Steven Spielberg, proving he is the coolest guy ever, actually saw an early cut of the film, loved it, and the lawsuit was dropped. Big Trouble in Little China in 1986. While a bit more high budget, the content of Big Trouble in Little China just screams schlock all over the place. And throughout the movie, Kurt Russell has beads of sweat running down his face because the action is so intense. Turns out that's actual sweat because he was suffering from a really severe flu and had a really high fever. Evil Dead from 1981 was made for around $350,000. Over 2 decades later, Sam Raimi, the director of Evil Dead, would direct Spider-Man 3, a production budget of $350 million. 1,000 times more expensive, 1,000 times crappier. Actually, I'm gonna defend Spider-Man 3. It wasn't his fault. It had flaws, it had problems, but it was better than any of those Andrew Garfield ones. True story. In Night of the Living Dead, never once is the word zombie used. Instead, most often they use those creatures or ghouls. Return of the Living Dead from 1985 did actually use the word zombie one time at the beginning of the film when they were referencing the events that happened in Night of the Living Dead as being true. But that's a bonus fact, because the real fact is 2 of the main characters, Bert and Ernie, were not named for the Sesame Street characters of the same name. It turned out the director, nope, that's a basketball player. Turns out the director, Dan O'Bannon, had no idea until production was well underway. Everyone's favorite space princess, superhero, fighter chick, Barbarella, from 1968 actually inspired the name of supergroup Duran Duran, because in Barbarella, she's looking for a scientist named Durand Durand. I'm emphasizing the D's at the end because it's Durand Durand, but the band is Duran Duran. It's an influence, not a direct. No, they didn't directly take it. True story. Nightmare on Elm Street is considered a classic today, but had it not been in the hands of a masterful director like Wes Craven, it could have turned into the most blatant schlock movie of all time. And its production house, New Line, is often credited as being the house that Freddy built, because the Nightmare on Elm Street series basically funded everything it wanted to do through the 80s and 90s. So if you're a big fan of The Lord of the Rings, you have Freddy Krueger to thank for that. And if you're a fan of The Hobbit, I'm really sorry. I apologize. You need to get better values in your life. Sleepaway Camp from 1986 has one of the most frightening single frames in cinematic history. It actually looks a lot like Ashley Birch. Hashtag Ashley Birch. But in order to create this, they actually took a mask from actress Felissa Rose's face and put it on a drunk college kid to get naked and film it. 1991's People Under the Stairs, which when I was a kid, I thought was the scariest freaking movie of all time. It was freaking scary. I couldn't sleep because the people were under the stairs. They were coming to get me. We didn't even have stairs in my house, but that wasn't going to stop them. They were coming to kill me. Was actually based on real news that Wes Craven read about. He read about burglars who broke into a house and then disappeared. When the police came to investigate, there was no sign of the burglars, but they did discover children locked in the basement, their parents forbidding them ever to leave the house. And you thought your childhood was tough. The super fantastic movie They Live from 1988, another John Carpenter film, has one of the greatest lines in history. I've come to kick ass and chew bubblegum, and I'm all out of bubblegum. It was actually made up by actor Rowdy Roddy Piper. For those of you that don't know, Rowdy Roddy Piper was one of the greatest talkers in sports entertainment history. And he wore a kilt. Totally pulled it off. I couldn't pull that off. Ghostbusters, while not schlock, was heavily influenced by schlock movies. And the PKE meters that they used in Ghostbusters were actually recycled props in other movies like Suburban Commando, They Live, and an episode of Knight Rider. The Toxic Avenger from 1984 is actually Marissa Tomei's film debut. She's an extra getting out of the shower in one scene. She would later win an Oscar and thank everyone on the Toxic Avenger set. That part's not true. 1974's Zardoz had Sean Connery. But apparently it was easy to get him because after he left the Bond franchise in 1971, Diamonds Are Forever, he had a hard time getting work. So they paid him a relatively low $200,000 to star in their movie, 1/5 of their $1 million production. The movie Them from 1954 is about giant ants killing everybody. And it was Studio Warner Brothers' highest grossing movie of the year. The absolutely horrible Flash Gordon movie from 1980 was actually nominated for 3 BAFTA awards. Costume, music, and art direction. Don't seem so prestigious now, do you? Puppet Master from 1989 actually canceled its theatrical run because the producers thought they could make more money going straight to video. Boy, were they right. Silent Night, Deadly Night from 1984 actually opened against A Nightmare on Elm Street and actually outgrossed it in their opening weekend. Don't say it, hiss it.